Welcome to another episode of the Creative Power Hour. I'm your host, Marcus Whitney, and my guest today is radiant Renata Soto. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have
Always
you
fun to be
here.
with you.
I know.
Whatever you say.
This is so
Would
great.
you do well? I say yes to you. So thank you for the invitation.
I think that's mutual. I have to fill a table at your event in a week, so I think we're the mutually saying yes society here. So I'm super excited to have you here, and we always start these shows with an origin story, and I don't think I really know yours, so I'm excited to hear it.
Okay. Well, where should we start? Back there? Back then?
Back there, back then. Yes. Yes.
Okay,
all 20 years ago.
Yeah, right. I grew up in San Jose, Costa Rica, in a small house full of girls and women, raised by my mom and my grandmother. I'm the youngest of three girls, who, taught me so much about just being friends, being mean to each other, being a difficult daughter, being a great sister, and all those things, right? I come from a family of educators, but not with an uninteresting path. Actually, my grandmother was an amazing woman who loved to write songs and poems on the side, but she had only a fourth grade education. And wow. She was this amazing woman that was so giving to everybody. I remember when she died, everybody that came to our house to pay their tributes, and people that we have never met and knew that she had touched the lives of so many people, we should have not been surprised. So my grandmother is this woman that centers my life in so many ways, not only because of what she gave me, but also if I think about now understanding more as an older, more mature woman, sort of a trajectory of how you become who you are. So understanding that my grandma had a fourth grade education, and so her daughter, her only daughter, not only being the first in her family to graduate from high school, but also go to college and become a college professor and a published poet and writer. Books were always around my house. And certainly I know that thanks to poetry, I think I have gained a lot of perspective and flavor in my own life, just because I have learned to appreciate the power of words in so many ways. Mm-hmm. I left Costa Rica when I was 21 to come to college to the US. And I really thought that I was going to be here only as a student for a couple years. I always saw myself doing something good in my country. I always was interested in leaving the world a better place that I found it, as cliche as that sounds.
It's a beautiful country too.
Right?
Beautiful country.
So why would you leave?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Exactly.
It's yeah.
But I always wanted to go abroad to study. I came to the US and I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to be a writer.
I have a quick question. Was it typical for children in Costa Rica to come to the US to study abroad? Was that the usual thing?
It is a common thing that a lot of people want to do. It's very typical for affluent families to come to study. That's not my case. I applied for a scholarship and I was giving a full ride, and that's the reason why I was able to say yes to the opportunity.
Got it.
I would say that in Latin America, a lot of people dream with, at least at some point in their lives as students, to go and study master's degree or something. But certainly it's a minority of people that are able to do it. Right? I would say that when I came here to Ohio as a 21-year-old, I was already a senior at the University of Costa Rica, almost finishing my communications degree. I thought that I was going to be here for a little while, but love kept me here. If college brought me here temporarily, by then I already had met who today is my husband. And after a couple of years here, just going back to Costa Rica, just like that, just didn't seem like where my heart was. But I certainly grew up thinking that I had a big responsibility to work around the communities in which I was part of and do something where I could contribute whatever I had to contribute. And so I think that choosing a path in journalism, it was a way of saying, by storytelling and telling the stories of our time and what's happening, I felt that that's how I could combine both my love for doing something good and writing. When I came to the US at 21, I shut down the possibility of being a reporter because I thought I can't write in English how I can in Spanish.
Wow.
And I totally decided that I couldn't be a reporter, so I had to figure out something else.
Wow. Okay, that's was a curveball. That was a curveball. Okay, so then what? I'm hooked. I'm hooked. That was good.
Well, so what happens is that then, I realize, okay, I'm here, but an immigrant in the U.S. I am bicultural, bilingual, and I don't think I can write. I can be a reporter, but I love storytelling. And at the end of the day, it was always this interest in what can I do that is good for the world around me.
Yeah.
And so I just started to look for jobs and ended up by chance at this nonprofit organization in Atlanta where my husband and I started our married life. And I work in the communications department. And actually, well, yeah, I can, communications, journalism, I can transfer that. And that one job is actually what opened the path in a career in the nonprofit sector here first in Atlanta and then in Nashville. And what I figured there, it was that, I could not only transfer a lot of my interest or channel my interest in the work of many nonprofits that now I was getting to know, but that also it was a place where I could still be writing the stories of people, maybe not for a newspaper, but telling the stories of organizations and the people that they touch. We came to Nashville in 96, and there was not such an organization like the one I work with in Atlanta here. Uh-huh. I worked for United Way for 5.5 years, and I love my job, and I was doing important work, I think, but my job was certainly not keeping me in touch with the Latino community, and certainly I was not feeling like I was using that part of me. So for 4.5 years, I co-hosted a radio show in one of the radio stations, Spanish radio stations, as a side project, as a volunteer project.
Okay.
On Tuesdays. It was called El Café de las Siete, Coffee at 7. It was at 7 p.m. on Tuesdays. And it was like this, a conversation with a guest.
Yeah.
With someone that, I and the co-host felt that there was something important to share with our community. Sometimes it was, the health department trying to do some good outreach about the programs they had. Sometimes it was another nonprofit trying to talk about the programs that they were starting to reach the Latino community. The most popular were when we had an immigration lawyer and everybody had a lot of questions about immigration law. So that was always very popular, and a lot of calls got to the radio station. And so through that work for 4.5 years, I really got to know what was happening in the Latino community in Nashville and what was not happening, what was available and what was not.
Yeah.
What nonprofits were doing, what the public entities were being challenged by the growth of the immigrant community here. And that's why in 2002, I decided to leave United Way and start Conexion Americas and be that organization that I felt needed to fill this void of a growing immigrant community, but not an understanding of all the complexities in which a family that arrives to a new community with a new language and new laws and new customs has to go through, right? We knew that like immigrants before us, they brought amazing entrepreneurship and determination and just like desire to buy a house, to start a business, to send their kids to school. But that sometimes it's not just, they knew what they wanted, but how did you get there?
Yeah.
Right? How do we work the system that now we find ourselves in? And that's what we tried to do with Conexion 17 years ago.
Unbelievable. When you came here, obviously you didn't know to the degree you did after you ran your radio show. You were really learning in that environment. But, was it generally part of the narrative in Costa Rica that it was as difficult as you learned that it was to be an immigrant in the United States? Like back then, was that the narrative? I'm just wondering, because now I feel like globally we've got a very different narrative around immigration and the difficulties associated with it. Yeah. But I feel like when I was growing up, so I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, right? I mean, Ellis Island, and I grew up with this belief that this was like the land of immigration, right? Like this was the place where immigration happened, and that's why we were the melting pot and sort of all that stuff they teach you in school here in America, especially in New York, okay? Yes. And so it's been a revelation of my adult life to learn about the challenges of immigration. And I'm just wondering, was that something that was known to you as a child, even going into like your college years in Costa Rica?
Yeah, no, I think in Costa Rica, we are a country that, as a proportion of our total population, not a lot of people leave, in part because we are a politically and socially stable country.
Yeah.
We have been also actually a receiving country for Central American brothers and sisters whose countries actually were torn by civil wars and economies that have not been built after lots of terrible political instability, and it's still the case. So I certainly grew up with a very strong sense of what it is for people to have to leave their home country. My mom was a very active person in the movement of solidarity for people from, especially in Nicaragua. So I was in my, 6, 7 years old when Costa Rica was receiving a lot of Nicaraguans who were fleeing because of the conditions in their country. But my mom was part of the solidarity movement in a more sort of organized way. And so in my house, we had a lot of Nicaraguan families that sometimes stayed just for a week. Sometimes we were at that point of transition between this and whatever little apartment we can get next. And so while it was not necessarily that I never thought that I would live the immigrant experience in that sense. Again, I came here just to study and I thought I was going to go be back, which is different being here as an international student than actually claiming I'm staying here. But I certainly know that much of that experience growing up in a family where we were welcoming families from Nicaragua, even if I didn't know it then, shaped a lot of even how I see my role in life, right? And certainly how I see and have perspective, not only for people who are coming to the US, but actually understanding that the movement of people from one place to another is actually one of the things that binds us as human beings. It's one of the most common things that has happened throughout history. And here in the US, of course, we are one of the destinations that has been built by that trajectory of people searching to become fully all who they are. And sometimes we forget that actually there are other people that are going to other countries, right? If it's Costa Rica, it's people from Nicaragua. If you are in Spain, are people from North Africa. If you are in Germany, are people from Syria, right? Like there is always some group of people that need to leave where they are. In my case, I feel very privileged that I did not, although I feel that in many ways I understand what it is to leave a place that you see as your home, and that is very hard to find how you claim roots in a new place and you allow yourself to call it home. But certainly I came as a privileged student, even though, right, like my family made a lot of sacrifice for me to be able to do that. I came with a letter from the US government saying, welcome to this country. I came with a school that was saying, here, you have your housing, your tuition, and actually a little job at the Spanish department to be an aide. And I had all those supports around me that made me be able to follow that opportunity. Many of the families that we work with at Conexion Americas have come with very different conditions. They just bring a suitcase full of dreams and nothing else, right? They have to start from scratch and build a new life here. And so I'm certainly, while I understand in how many ways my story is their story, I also am very aware in how many dimensions I don't live the story of someone whose parents had to leave because poverty or violence in Central America and you're fearing for your life, right? I came here for the opportunity of an education. But I was leaving also a country that was stable, that actually a country that I knew I could go back to and that I wanted to go back to. Right? It's very different when you leave a place and you know that you don't know if you're ever going to come back and the conditions that push you to go away. So it's an interesting journey to think about the Central American families in my house and now how I ended up being a stranger in a new country that also needed the support and welcoming spirit of other people to tell me that I also belong here or that I can belong here.
Yeah, over the years of listening to you speak on behalf of Conexion Americas, you have always been very upfront about that fact, right? The fact that you came here under, I hate to use the word privilege, but like you came in under better circumstances than many other families that seek to immigrate into the United States. How how does your self-awareness of that, and I maybe even wonder, like, if there's something you talked about your grandmother, and I put a pin in that because I was like, okay, there's something there, right? How does that self-awareness that you have about, is it okay if I just call it privilege, right? About the privilege that you had to enter this country with the circumstances that you did, and also the optionality to return to a stable country. How has that driven you to do the work that you've made, let's just call it your adult life's work, right? I mean, how has that driven you to do that?
Yeah, since you asked me about my origin story too, let me say that when I was in first grade, I wanted to be a pediatrician. By the time I got to high school, my teachers bet that I was going to go to law school and run for office. By the time I got to college, I decided I wanted to be a journalist and a reporter. Now, I swear to God, my dream still is to be a backup dancer for Beyonce. So let's work on that one. And, here I am at almost 47 years old, and I am none of those things, right?
Yeah.
Somehow my story became this quest for an answer to this question: what does it mean to be of a place? When do you get to claim both that you are part of it, and when does this new place claim you as one of its own? And I think that for me, what has been clear about my trajectory at Conexion and this work even before through the radio station is that I think awareness about our own stories and how we become who we are, and the people that have along the way encouraged us, formed us, but then also understanding who you are not. And so, for example, for me, it's very important to say to you that I am not representative of the story of a family who crosses the river and is risking their life. I did not risk my life coming in an airplane. And it is very important for me because I also want people to understand that while I appreciate the microphone that I am given in many places to speak about the work of Conexion Americas, but also about the trajectory of people and why they're here and why they deserve our support, is because I think it's very important for us to remember that no one speaks for a whole community. I can speak about the stories that I know. I can speak about the ways in which I understand it from the ways in which my personal story connects to them. But also I know that I'm not representing the Latino community in Nashville when I'm in front of this microphone. And I think that having the humility to understand in what ways your story connects to the other person, but in what ways you can't claim that also you represent everything that this community that I'm trying to advocate for.
Yeah.
I think it's very important to have that sense of not, let some arrogance about I'm speaking for my community and I represent all that they think and all that they are. I am probably just a conduit to sharing some of the stories that are representative, but not all of the richness of those stories.
Well,
I don't know that I answered your question.
I think you did. I mean, a light bulb went off for me when you said you went to school for communications and that you wanted to be a reporter and a journalist. And even though, we're probably all better off for the fact that you didn't have the confidence when you first got here to feel like you could do that for a news organization.
I'm too opinionated anyway to be a reporter, right?
Amen,
I think I would have been fired quickly, but anyway.
I can relate to that.
Although now media is more
media is whatever you make it.
Yeah.
Whatever you make it, right?
Yeah.
But I will say I have always thought a couple of things about you. So one, that you're an extremely effective communicator. And I didn't actually think about this attributing it to you, but one of the things I love about Cafecito, which is the annual fundraiser. Nonprofits have annual fundraisers. That's the one for Conexion Americas. What I love about it is how well you and your organization and the people who produce those pieces tell the story of the people. You are far more effective than most organizations in telling those stories, and you really understand how important it is to tell those stories and move people. Like like you take a data point and a headline and you humanize it completely, and you connect us to these people, which really makes us question, why the hell would we not claim them? Right? It's like why you really can't leave that breakfast with a belief that you still should not claim, right? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so I think you've.
That's great to hear.
Yeah. I think you've done well with that skill set and that ambition, even if not in the traditional sense of the term reporter. And I think so. I mean, I think you. I think I get it.
Well, I think that to me, one of the most important things that I've learned in this work, and I think that applies to anything, is, as you say, we can try to convince people by numbers, by policy arguments, by data, but at the end of the day, people understand a story. Mm-hmm. And when I can have the voice of a student talking about her dreams to go to college and be the first in their family, and she wants to become a teacher, and all that her family has done to get to the point where she even can aspire to do that, and she's saying it, that's where I hope we're changing hearts and minds, where we want her. Wouldn't we want to stay behind her and make sure that she can become all that she can offer to herself, to her family, and to this country? Right. So I agree with you. We try to make sure that that the video, it is actually not an information on Conexion Americas. It is actually our opportunity to share with 700 people sitting in front of us a story that you might otherwise have not been able to hear directly.
There's no might. Okay, yeah. There is no other outlet. Once a year, you go to this event if you live in Nashville, and you're reminded that these people are not a headline, and they're not a breaking news story about something that happened with ICE in town or something like that. That these are families with ambition that work hard and love each other and care and are scared, and it's hard not to feel that, right? And you guys are the only ones really doing it. I'm not saying there aren't other organizations that are doing it, but I'm saying from the storytelling perspective, I haven't experienced that elsewhere. Now, I'm sure I need to go and do more things. I know I need to do more things. But just to give you some credit for that.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's
well, you know what I think and I've been reflecting a lot on this because of things that I've been writing and reflecting on my 17 years as I'm getting ready to step down from Conexion Americas is, I did not become the investigative reporter that I once wanted to be. But I'm not writing a story for the newspaper, but I think that, what I hope is that I have helped create a platform through which other people can tell their stories of sacrifice, of risk-taking, of rejection, of injustice, but above all, of triumph and of belonging, right? That's part of what we are. Yes, we do programs and we do all these ways in which people are moving towards their version of the American dream, but at the end, this is creating their story, and we are very honored that get to share that story with people like you.
So, there was a moment where you realized you were not doing the work that connected you with the community, that you felt you have an identity, right? That connects you to a community, and United Way just wasn't really getting you there. What year was this?
This was, 96 to 2002.
Yeah, so you start Conexion Americas 2002. Okay, 2002. Yeah. I started working at Emma Email Marketing in 2003.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's how early this is that you started this organization. Nashville then is not Nashville now. Who was the mayor then?
But then it was Mayor Purcell.
Mayor Purcell, that's what I figured. Yeah, okay. What was
Well, actually, when I arrived here, it was Bredesen. And then
then at that point it was Purcell,
yes.
So what was it like starting this organization? I mean, you did, the good news is you had experience both from the nonprofit you worked in Atlanta and then United Way here. So you knew how nonprofits operated. Mm-hmm. What was it like starting this nonprofit in the South, in Nashville, Tennessee, in 2002? What was that like?
So, first of all, I would say that sometimes you do things and you don't think about it then. And if you reflect back, like, what was I thinking? I was 29 going on 30.
Wow.
I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Wow.
And you are a parent. You know that toddler years are
because we were just talking like
emotionally
our kids are like the
and
same,
physically.
Our kids are like the same ages,
yes.
basically, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So if I were to think about it, I probably wouldn't have done it because it was crazy. As you know, starting things, especially the first 2-3 years, it's a lot of work, not only creative work, but it's also physical, it's emotionally demanding. I remember when my kids went to bed and my husband and I had our last final chit-chat conversation at night and everybody went to bed. I went back to my kitchen table for still 2 or 3 more hours. Good thing that I'm a night owl.
Right.
But I put a lot of hours in the quiet corner of a kitchen table at my house in those 3 years.
Yeah.
But what I can tell you is that it was the most exciting thing I've ever done. That writing, imagining what this organization would do, and then trying to explain that to other people.
Yeah.
It was a great process. And I would also say that as important as it was to be doing something that it was needed at the time, so we were bringing an idea at the right moment, is also having the right people with you to do it. My co-founders, Jose Gonzalez and Maria Clara Mejia, and I met in 2001, and through the process of coffee in the afternoon and a glass of wine at night for several weeks and months, we came together with this idea and we grew together as we were building this thing. Mm-hmm. And it was in 2002 when we decided, let's do it. And I left my job at United Way. But I can say that to me, the startup process and the taking the risk of leaving a very great job that I actually loved at United Way to go into the unknown, and let's hope that we will make a case to funders that they will support this nonprofit that was starting, that will come through. But I would have not done that with the confidence and in the moment that I did it if it were not because I knew that I had these 2 amazing partners whose values we shared, but who brought so many different skills and perspectives to what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
And so I think what it was key at that moment is a lot of people already knew that the Latino community was growing. The 2000 census was the first time that we learned as a country that while Latinos still are in absolute numbers in great proportion in Texas and in California, those places. Right. But the 2000 census was the first time that we saw a different picture of the country, which was for the first time the Latino community has grown the most in places like Nashville. Mm-hmm. So by the time that we are trying to start Conexion Americas in 2002, I think that there are a lot of funders and certainly the mayor and other public sector entities had a feeling our community is changing and already were feeling the pressures of not being equipped to serve those new community members. Mm-hmm. So I would say that we came into the game when it was when right. we were needed.
Yeah. And then what was that vote?
The English only?
English only. Yep.
Yeah, that was 2009. So I was a little bit later.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to think about what are the big things that
so
what
was
happening.
What was happening there more was like driver licenses and a lot of things at the state level, trying to say, we don't need to make our state a magnet for people that we don't want here. Yeah. And so there were a lot of legislative proposals that were really also why I left United Way. I really felt that not only I wanted to be part of founding an organization that, like most typical nonprofits in Nashville, are about direct social service. That is something that our families needed. But we also needed to be absolutely in the advocacy world, speaking and advocating for policies at the state level, at the national level, and here in Nashville. And so being a dual organization with direct services for community and advocacy as a platform was part of what encouraged me to leave, because I knew that no one else was doing that in Nashville. Many organizations and churches were offering English classes for the immigrant community. But when there was a fight at the state legislature, those organizations didn't feel that they could raise their flag for that community they were serving.
Right.
And part of our impetus to form Conexion was exactly, we unapologetically are going to talk about why these families are here and why that policy is bad, not only for them, but for all Tennesseans. And so that was part of those policy conditions, but then also the growth of the community here, just the sheer number, was what led us to start Conexion.
So at some point, and maybe right from the beginning, I mean, it could be that you realized that these things weren't just impacting the Latino community, but there was also obviously a large Sudanese population. There was a large Iraqi population sort of growing. At some point, Conexion became larger than just an organization representing the Latino population. What happened there? What was the inflection point? Was that baked in from the beginning, or was it just sort of a growing recognition that because I feel like it was during Mayor Dean's administration when I first started hearing the term New Americans and started seeing like Muhammad pop up all over the place, but like just give me a little bit of backstory on that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So while the Latino community has grown exponentially in the last 20 years, Nashville has been a community that has welcomed refugees since the 70s. Right. So, and this is thanks to Catholic Charities and then World Relief. So Nashville already had a tradition of being a place where faith-based organizations were being part of that global movement of receiving families that are fleeing, in this case, war and persecution. And so by the time that the Latino community started going, actually, there are already some people that have been here before us.
Yeah.
You were before us. Everybody was before us. But in terms of migration sort of patterns.
Got it. Okay.
And so when we started Conexion Americas, though, our intent was particularly with the Latino community because of the growth. And numerically, we are the largest immigrant community. But what you're talking about is that there's also a growing sense as we start Conexion Americas that we have a particular competence and experience to serve that community. But of course, many of the things that our community are challenged by are also the problems that affect other immigrant communities. And sometimes at the policy level, telling the story is where it was most important, that we were telling not just the story of a Latino family coming from Mexico, but also that we needed to be in a space and create opportunities for others and for us to learn about the stories of somebody coming from Kurdistan. And so as the Latino community continues to grow and other immigrant communities continue to grow, we understood that one organization alone could not do it all.
Yeah.
And inspired by some of my work at United Way, creating family resource centers, which are these one-stop centers that you place in neighborhoods where they're public and private organizations under one roof. That's where the idea of forming a nonprofit collaborative on Nolensville Road that would bring several organizations under one roof, Conexion Americas, with other organizations serving other immigrant and refugee communities to share resources, ideas, just share camaraderie, right? Even if sometimes we're doing your thing, we're doing ours.
Right.
But just the feeling that being in the same space would be an important kind of sort of support to each other, but also making it easier for people that were looking for the services and opportunities that we were offering to find us. And so that's how Casa Azafran became. And it took us 5 years from the moment that I first wrote the first application pitching the idea to someone to when we moved to the center. It's now almost 30,000 square feet on Nolensville Pike.
It's incredible.
Houses 8 groups under one roof, all with very distinct and autonomous missions and programs, but all brought together by the idea that, like the cliche say, we are stronger when we're together. And that it is also a symbolic claiming of, for the rest of Nashville, about the presence and contributions of our immigrant community. I'm very proud that people see Casa Azafran and see it also as a landmark, just like maybe the I don't know, the Batman building or the Parthenon, right? Like a lot of people see our buildings like, oh, that's South Nashville. They might not know the name, which I don't care, but they know that's South Nashville and it means something special. And so Casa Azafran is Conexion Americas' recognition that Latinos are the largest immigrant community in Nashville, but we're not the only ones. And if there are any ways in which we can share space, resources, and energies, maybe being under one building, it was our attempt to say that. Mm-hmm. In our classes, of course, for example, in our English classes, we have a lot of families that are not only Spanish speaking. In our Culinary Incubator, we have immigrants from all over the world, not just from Latin America.
Okay. Our viewers and listeners do not know about this. You have to talk about the Culinary Incubator. It's amazing. You have to talk about it.
Yeah.
This is like breakthrough stuff.
So when we started Conexion 2002, one of the things that we, from the beginning, did was supporting entrepreneurship through basic classes for, like, Business 101.
Basics,
right? Like a 6-week course, 2 hours each night on Wednesdays, right?
Lovely.
It has grown more. Now it's 10 weeks and it's a lot more and some one-on-one assistance. Uh-huh. But through those years, we saw, in particular for people who came to our class trying to get into the food business, how hard it was. It is so expensive. The equipment is expensive. You need all these health department certifications. It's just not an easy thing. Yet our community is so full of creativity and richness of our food in our home countries. And so when we created Casa Azafran,
might I just say, and we as Nashvillians are the beneficiaries of that, right? I mean, like, if you...
It is one of the ways in which people have seen...
Are you kidding me?
It's one of the ways in which people experience the most directly how Nashville has changed.
It's a great way in a city that right now has been priding itself on the diversity and the development of its food scene. Mm-hmm. To have, it's something I would hear people talk about all the time, especially since I grew up in New York. People talk about, there's better food in New York, blah, blah, blah. There's not enough diversity of food here. Especially because, New York has all these different cultures and they're making sort of very, very authentic, first and second generation, removed. It's like super authentic versions of the food that you get in New York. But like, because of, and I'm going to let you get back to it, but I just need to say, like, because of what you've done, the combination of these business classes and the actual incubator, which you have to talk more about, but like, we have been the beneficiaries of better food. Mm-hmm. Just like different types of food, very authentic food, really fresh food, really good food. It's really good. Yes. It's really good.
Yes.
Okay, keep going. Sorry.
No, so when we're creating the community center, and then Conexion is now dreaming also, okay, well, we need more space for staff and we need better parking, all these things. But we also saw the opportunity to address these problems that we have seen for people in our entrepreneurship classes of all the barriers that they faced when trying to open a restaurant or a catering business. My co-founder, Jose Gonzalez, had been in, I think it was Syracuse, I think it was New York, for a conference. Mm-hmm. And he actually toured this nonprofit that had a culinary incubator, this commercial kitchen, shared environment, like the best example of the sharing economy.
Yeah.
People don't own, people share.
Right.
And so he came back with that idea, and so we started researching more culinary incubators, shared kitchens. I went to San Francisco to visit one that is, like, everybody in this country like thinks is the holy grail of culinary incubators. And we decided, let's just dream even bigger and create that kind of space within the footprint of Casa Azafran as part of the growth of Conexion Americas entrepreneurship program. The kitchen opened, and like in a year and a half, we had to expand because we had a wait list as long as the many entrepreneurs that we can host at any given time. Today, we have about 30 businesses that run their catering business, their food truck or wholesale company from our culinary incubator. And it is my favorite part of Casa Azafran. As in many homes, the kitchen, it's heart. Mm-hmm. And that is true for Casa Azafran too. The creative energy, talk about creative energy.
It's incredible.
It is incredible.
It's incredible.
And what I love the most is that, when we created the kitchen, we knew that we were going to be providing a licensed kitchen with quality equipment, commercial equipment that otherwise many of these businesses would have not access to, that meets all the regulations from health department and the Tennessee Agricultural Department.
Such
and all
a huge barrier you removed by doing that. It's just, I love it so much.
So we knew that those were the barriers that we were removing, and of course that we were going to provide technical assistance on growing your business.
Sure.
So that what we did not understand then, that I think is actually what people value the most, is the community.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
The mentorship that happens between a food entrepreneur that has been in the business for a couple years with the one that is just starting. And I'm saying it is from the little things of how to pitch if you're trying to get into a new market, but also the little things, or hey, I have an idea of how to do that you're doing, cooking that in a faster way, right? So it's also the technical part of like, how do we cook?
Yes.
And I love that many of the businesses support each other by bringing each other to, like, for example, you're a caterer and there's a baker that makes the bread there. Instead of this caterer who her specialty is not making bread, she now buys the bread from that baker from our kitchen, and that's what she offers to her clients. People that had been lucky in getting into Kroger or other distribution systems, then learn from this person how to do it, and they don't have to learn it the hard way. So our Culinary Incubator is a great community that reminds us not only like you're really in front of that immigrant entrepreneur spirit that has built this country, but also just this creativity. Cooks, I don't know that people see them often as the artists that they are.
Oh my gosh.
You know, like, I don't think that we talk I know that we talk about culinary arts, but truly, their creative energy and their artistry is, I love it. And we benefit at the building just having their presence, because not only they feed us really well, often when they're trying things or they have leftovers, there's always great food around Conexion Americas and Casa Safran, but also because of the spirit that they bring. Yeah,
like if you so I like being in the kitchen, and probably once every 6 months I'll get on like a little cookbook kick, and I'll like pick something. I'm on some kind of crazy diet, and just trying to follow a professional recipe is hard enough. You know what I mean? Like, can you even imagine what it took to create the recipe? You see what I'm saying?
Or
like
the system to replicate this so that you can serve and feed 500 people. That's
the same way over and over and over and over again, right?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And presentation and order and pairings and...
Yes. One of my favorites right now, one of our newest entrepreneurs is two men from Peru. And I have to say, every time I eat their food, it's like I feel I am at my grandmother's house. It's just that kind of food. It's very homey.
Where is it?
Peruvian. So
No, but where? Where can I eat?
So they're catering.
Catering.
So you gotta order from them.
So I have to order from them.
Yes, there's not a restaurant. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's their name?
Two Peruvians and a truck.
Amazing.
I know, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say you'll have to give it to me later, and I was like, no, we're gonna give the promotion right now. Two Peruvians and a truck. Okay, perfect. That's amazing. I'll be catering for them here very soon. I love the Culinary Incubator so much. I love it so much. So I regard you as one of the most impactful creative leaders in Nashville.
Thank you. That's so nice.
Well, I think many other people would say that too. So I'm sure I'm not the first person to ever say that to you. I love sort of what's going on in your life right now. So you announced top of the year, right?
Yes.
Top of the year, that after
17 years,
an extremely successful run as the founding executive director, that you are stepping aside for new leadership to come in. And I don't think anybody would have said it was necessarily your time, because there's still so much work to be done, obviously, right? I mean, we're in a particular time in America that we don't need to rehash in this show. I think everybody knows.
It's tough times.
It's tough times, right? We're going through some tough times. But you're stepping aside to sort of open up for the next chapter, and we bonded at the Belcourt event over the fact that we're both about to be empty nesters, which is incredible.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about that. Like what's going on?
Yeah. Well, I think that just like most things in life, there is a cycle, right? There's a beginning, there's an end. Sometimes it's circular and you come back to it and you grow and you keep growing. And I think that that's not different for organizations. And I, in particular, think that in the nonprofit world, sometimes leaders stay too long. Let me just say it. I've seen it close to me. And I do believe that while I love my job and I'm not leaving because I'm burnout, I love Conexion Americas and its mission more.
Yeah.
And Conexion will benefit from, after 17 years under my leadership, to have someone who will have new perspective, new ways of looking at the same problems that we've been fighting for, the new ideas on how to grow in different ways that might be my inclinations, right? Bring new strengths, just a new way of looking at the work. And so I understood about 3 years ago that I did not want it to be at Conexion Americas for the 20th anniversary, that was someone else's point of celebration.
Wow.
And someone else is saying,
Gosh,
our 20 years are going to be about this. That was not
that is
my
a
role.
really, boy, that's a big thing to say. I mean, you put 17 years in and the 20th is not yours to have.
Yeah, I think that we all have to understand that, listen, I am so proud of what I've been part of building.
You understand? You understand why I'm hooked on that, right?
Yeah, and it's not.
I mean, I think that's incredible. I'm cutting you off because I just want to I think that's incredible, and rare. That is rare. That you most people would not. Most people would say, I'm out after 20. You know what I'm saying? Like, I put 17 in, I'm getting that 20. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not, that's a new one for me. So that's, okay. All right.
Yeah, I think that we all need to understand that we're not indispensable. I know what I have given to Conexion. And I could be giving it more. And I will, as a citizen who will continue to support its work. But I think Conexion is so strong and is ready for someone to take it to its next chapter. And I also think that I need to be challenged and think about what is the next challenge that I want to embrace as mine in terms of, I'm always, as I said, right, I wanted to be a reporter because it's sort of like public good. I'm always going to be about what can I do to do good. And I think I also need to be stretched in different ways. But above all is for me the understanding that organizations benefit from new leaders. And I need to step aside and let a new leader take my beloved Conexion Americas to a new, beautiful place.
So what's next?
So
I sort of know the answer to this. I'm like, I'm kind of feeding you a line here, but...
What's next? Well,
yeah.
I think at some point also, because again, as I said, I've been thinking about this for 3 years and working with our executive committee and our leadership team and now with our board in the last few months. I've been getting ready intellectually and then emotionally for this departure, right? Because yes, it's been my thing for 17 years.
Yeah.
And at some point I felt like most people probably feel in this situation, like, okay, yeah, what I'm going to do next? I'm going to have to line up my next great thing or start something new because I like to start things and create things. But I was craving and I am craving actually a pause to just reflect about all that I have learned, but also all the ways in which my next chapter may take me. And I wanted to make sure that I try to be disciplined about not necessarily jumping into something, even though it might be an exciting thing, but really just take the time to be about thinking. I would love to be in a sort of intellectual inquiry, both reading things that I have not been able to read in the last few things, listening to podcasts that I have not been able to, right? I want to be inspired by voices that I have not been able to listen to in the last few years, just because we were doing this kind of work. And luckily, because of my legacy of 17 years and my husband's good support, I'm going to be able to take a little break and not necessarily say I'm jumping in the next job. I know that not everybody can do that, and I'm really grateful to life that I can take the pause and do that. I think that I certainly want to be a learner for the next few months. A year would be great, but let's say just for the next one. I really want to be a learner. I don't want to make decisions. I don't want to lead. I just wanted to sort of, I feel like I'm a sponge right now. June 1, when I leave Conexion, I really feel like I want to see new perspectives. I want to see Nashville maybe from a different point of view, and I want to see what's my place in the world, and where is that place.
I mean, that sounds so good.
Am I right? I want to write. I like writing. Remember, I want to be a reporter, and maybe finding space. I'm gonna follow your advice. Maybe I need to go in a cabin for a few days. Any tips?
Yes, I have good tips. So my partner in my strategic advisory business in healthcare, Steve Trementier, he really sort of pushed me to like go off the grid. And his was more like just go off the grid and like don't have a plan. I had my book to finish, and so I was like, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go off the grid, but it's going to be a writing retreat for me. But I do have to say it was really transformational to go away just by myself and just hole away and just deal with that conversation, right? And it was definitely transformative. I mean, I came out on the other side with a completely different perspective that led to this show. I mean, I was thinking about doing it, but I came back resolved I was gonna do it. I shot the first episode. I started buying all the stuff. So yes, you should definitely go do that. And just furthermore, 17 years is an incredible tour of duty, right? I mean, you deserve a break. You deserve a break to reflect, to integrate. Like you probably have not even really integrated what you did, like what you've just done, And I think you need some time to just like let that sink in. You know what I mean? Like, cause you're leading, you're like doing, you're still doing. You have a big event next week, right? So like you're still doing. You're not reflecting yet, right? I mean, you need time to like just integrate how this experience has absolutely transformed you as a person. I mean, like we could have done a 2-hour show talking about all the things you've done, right? I mean, like the awards you've won and the roles you've held. I mean, you're the chair of La Raza, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like
I'm stepping down from that board in June too. See, there are a lot of transitions.
Yeah, exactly. But this is great. Like this space, I was so excited when we talked about it, and you said you don't know. Like you weren't like, yeah, I'm gonna go run for office with it. You're just like, no, I don't know what I'm doing. It was just, I don't know. It made me happy because I just feel like one of the big things that I've learned is that we do not take well enough care of ourselves. And taking care of ourselves has multiple dimensions. Yes. It's not just eating well, it's not just drinking water, it's not just exercising, it's not just going on vacations. I mean, it's taking time to reflect and integrate, our life's experiences. It's taking time to process our traumas. You know what I'm saying? And, here's one thing I know. You don't do what you just did without having some trauma. Like, it wasn't all roses.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. There were definitely some hard things along the way. And just taking that time to do that I'm super excited for you.
Thank you.
I'm super excited for you. And you're going to do some travel?
I'm going to do some travel this summer with family and by myself. And then the one thing that I do know that I'm going to do, but again, it's part of this learning parenthesis.
Yeah.
I was just notified that I was selected for this Transatlantic Dialogue Fellowship at the German Marshall Fund, which basically takes 25 leaders from Europe and the US for exchange and learning, about politics and all the things that are happening in the world.
Yeah.
Some are similar, some are different. So I know that I will be doing a lot of reading and learning for that. And I'll be the entire month of October traveling with this fellowship in Europe. And, I'm interested to again, also see the U.S. from that perspective and learn about the things that are happening in Europe that are parallels. The rise of nativism here and in Europe, the flow of migrants arriving is affecting conversations in many countries. The communities challenged by gentrification and education systems that don't respond to the needs of new economies, right? And there's so many things that are not just issues that we're dealing here in Nashville. Some are global, and some places also are figuring out. So I'm excited to be able to step out and see my adopted country from a different perspective, but also to learn about what's being done in other places, like Europe in this case.
And what about what excites you about? I've been doing some thinking about this the last month or so. What excites you? I mean, look, yes, there's like challenges that are happening, but we also know, or I think we believe that the world is ultimately a good place, right? And that we're gonna cycle through this stuff, right? So we've both got kids the same age. What excites you for them?
Yeah.
We could talk forever about what scares. We could talk forever about what scares us about the world for them. But what excites you about the world for them?
When I think about my kids and what sort of they say and talk, and when I think about all the young people that are in Conexion Americas programs, and I see sort of this twinkle in their eye about the things that they want to achieve, I am excited about what I'm excited about them is them.
Yep. I know. They don't buy into this stuff.
They
are not.
I think our generation, and listen, we still have a lot to give. So it's
not
right.
I know.
But I truly believe that this next generation, our children, are going to be the ones that truly build a truly inclusive community. They are growing up in a world where stories and people who are welcome and whose humanity is not questioned in ways that we did not.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm excited about us, because I see this next generation that is following us, and I think that they're going to lead us in that path of more, I guess, reconciliation and acceptance and inclusivity and equity that, many of us are fighting for now. But I think the next generation is going to be the one that really take us and lead us there.
I agree. That's a good note to end on. So I know that you are going to take a break, but please tell the viewers and listeners where they can find your organization, and if you're going to leave any breadcrumbs for people to follow your journey, where they can follow you as you step down.
Yes, please follow the work and mission of Conexion Americas. Where am I looking at?
You can look at any of the cameras.
Okay, just anywhere. Okay.
Yeah.
ConexionAmericas.org. That's CONEXION. It's long. I'm sorry. AMERICAS.org. Follow us on Facebook and certainly on Twitter too. And actually, Twitter is a good way to be connected with me. Renata Soto TN. RENATA SOTOTN. I hope to be sharing whatever, certainly when I'm in Europe doing this fellowship, but in whatever other journeys I take, probably that's the best way to follow me.
Awesome. Well, thank you,
and thank you so much. It's been so fun.
You're the best. I totally appreciate it. And you are the last guest I have scheduled. I really need to figure out who I'm, because I told you I've had all my friends that I super admire, and not all of them. I have more people. Caroline Williams is very high on the list.
Yes.
Very high on the list.
Oh my gosh, I want to listen to that one.
She's super high on the list, and I haven't gotten it scheduled yet. But Caroline, coming for you. Can
I be an audience here when you interview her? Isn't she something? Oh, I love her. I love her mom too.
I know, Alice is amazing. But yes, thank you so much for doing this. It was awesome. I'm so glad we got to document this before you stepped down. I'm so glad that the timing worked out. And I will see you next week at the event.
Thank you.
All right. And for y'all, see you next time. Peace.